The first time I saw Julian Acosta cry, it was 2 a.m. in a Chicago dive bar, his hands shaking as he confessed he'd married me to destroy someone else. His words hit like a blade, sharp and cold, but his eyes, those dark, haunted eyes, begged me to stay. By dawn, he was in my arms, whispering my name like it was the only thing keeping him alive. My name is Ezra Brooks, a 28-year-old graphic designer with a knack for fixing broken things: computers, sketches, people. I grew up in a small Ohio town, where being black and queer meant learning to dodge fists and hide truths. Chicago was my escape, a city big enough to hold my dreams and my secrets. I met Julian at a gallery opening in Wicker Park, his sharp jawline and easy charm cutting through the crowd like a spotlight. He was 29, a Puerto Rican chef with a laugh that could warm a room, but a shadow lingered behind his smile. I didn't know then that shadow had a name: Marcus. Marcus Vega, Julian's ex, was a 30-year-old lawyer with a reputation for winning cases and breaking hearts. Julian had loved him fiercely, obsessively, until Marcus left him for someone else, a betrayal that carved a wound Julian couldn't close. When Julian proposed to me after 6 months of dating, I thought it was love. I said yes under a sky full of stars, my heart racing with hope. But that night in the bar, Julian admitted the truth: our marriage was a weapon, a way to make Marcus jealous, to prove he'd moved on. I was collateral damage in a war I hadn't signed up for. I should have left. I should have packed my bags and walked out of our cramped Lakeview apartment, leaving behind the ring that felt heavier every day. But something in Julian's voice, raw, desperate, kept me there. Maybe it was the way he clung to me after his confession, his body trembling against mine, or the way he whispered, "Ezra, you're the only thing that feels real." I stayed, not because I was weak, but because I saw something in him worth saving. Our marriage was a fragile thing, built on half-truths and late-night apologies. By day, Julian was charming, cooking elaborate dinners in our tiny kitchen, his hands steady as he diced onions or kissed my forehead. But at night, when the city quieted, he'd unravel. He'd check his phone obsessively, scrolling through Marcus's social media, his face tightening with every photo of Marcus smiling with someone new. I'd watch from the doorway, my heart aching, wondering if I was just a placeholder. One evening, I found Julian sitting on the fire escape, staring at the skyline. The October air was crisp, and his breath fogged as he spoke. I thought hurting him would fix me, he said, his voice barely above a whisper. But it's not working. All I feel is you. I sat beside him, our shoulders brushing, and for the first time, I felt like he saw men at Marcus. Not the past, but me. I took his hand, and he didn't pull away. The city pulsed around us, a mix of honking cabs and distant laughter. But in that moment, it was just us. I wanted to believe we could rebuild, that love could grow from the ashes of his revenge. But Marcus wasn't gone. He was still out there, a ghost haunting every quiet moment. And I knew this was only the beginning. Days turned into weeks, and Julian's obsession with Marcus didn't fade. He'd mention him casually, like a slip of the tongue, but each time, it stung. I threw myself into work, designing logos for startups, trying to drown out the doubt. My best friend, Lena, a 27-year-old bartender with a no-nonsense attitude, saw through my facade. "Ezra, you're too good for this," she said over coffee at a Pilsen cafe. "You're not his therapist. You're his husband." Her words hit hard, but I couldn't let go it yet. One night, Julian came home late, his eyes red from crying. He'd seen Marcus at a restaurant, laughing with his new partner. "I thought I'd feel something," Julian said, collapsing onto the couch. "But all I could think about was you, waiting here." He reached for me, and I let him, our bodies pressed together in the dark. His kisses were desperate, like he was trying to anchor himself to something real. I wanted to believe it was love, but doubt lingered like a shadow. The next morning, I found a note on the fridge: "Ezra, I'm trying. Give me time. I stared at it, my heart caught between hope and fear. Julian was fighting his demons, but I wasn't sure if I could survive the battle. The weeks that followed were a tightrope walk. Julian's efforts to move past Marcus were earnest but unsteady, like a man learning to walk again after a fall. He'd leave me little gifts, a sketchbook for my designs, a playlist of songs that reminded him of me, but his phone still buzzed with notifications from Marcus's posts. I wanted to trust him, but every glance at his screen felt like a betrayal. Chicago's winter crept in, blanketing the city in snow and silence. Our apartment became a battleground of unspoken words. Julian started therapy, a small step that gave me hope. He'd come home from sessions quieter, more introspective, but he'd still crawl into bed and hold me like I was his lifeline. I don't deserve you, he'd whisper, his voice thick with guilt. I'd kiss his temple and say, just keep trying. But inside, I was breaking. One night, at a friend's art show in Logan Square, everything changed. The gallery was packed, the air humming with chatter and clinking glasses. Julian was by my side, his hand in mine. When I saw him tense, across the room, Marcus stood, his arm around a man I didn't recognize. He was taller than Julian described, with a confident smile that made my stomach twist. Julian's grip on my hand tightened, and I felt the old wound reopen. Let's go, I whispered, tugging him toward the door. But Julian didn't move. His eyes were locked on Marcus, a storm brewing in them. Before I could stop him, he crossed the room. I followed, my heart pounding, as he confronted Marcus. You look happy, Julian said, his voice sharp but trembling. Marcus raised an eyebrow, unfazed. I am, he replied, his tone cool. You should try it sometime. The words hit Julian like a punch. He turned to me, his face a mix of anger and shame, and grabbed my hand. Let's get out of here, he said, his voice breaking. Outside, the snow fell softly, and Julian pulled me into an alley, his breath ragged. I'm sorry, he said, tears streaming down his face. I didn't mean to drag you into this. I cupped his face, my thumbs brushing away his tears. I'm here, I said, but you have to let him go. That night, we didn't sleep. We sat on the couch, wrapped in a blanket, talking until the sun rose. Julian told me about his childhood in San Juan, how he'd learned to cook from his grandmother, how Marcus had been his first love. I thought he was my future, he said, but you're my present. His words were a lifeline, and I clung to them, hoping they were true. The next day, Julian deleted Marcus's number. It was a small act, but it felt monumental. We started rebuilding, piece by piece. He cooked me breakfast stars con gandals, his grandmother's recipe, and we laughed over burnt toast. For the first time, I felt like we were a team, not two people caught in a storm. But peace was fleeting. A week later, Marcus texted Julian from a new number. I miss you. I saw the message before Julian could hide it, and the air between us grew heavy. I didn't ask for this, Julian said, his voice pleading. I wanted to believe him, but doubt crept in again. Then block him, I said, my tone sharper than I intended. Julian hesitated, and that hesitation cut deeper than any words. We didn't speak for 2 days. I stayed with Lena, her tiny apartment a refuge from the chaos. You can't keep doing this to yourself, she said, pouring me wine. You're worth more than his baggage. I knew she was right, but my heart wasn't ready to let go. I loved Julian, flaws and all, and I couldn't shake the image of him clinging to me in the dark, needing me. When I returned home, Julian was waiting. He'd cooked dinner, the table set with candles. I blocked him, he said, his eyes steady. I want us. Only us. I nodded, tears stinging my eyes, and we ate in silence, the weight of his promise hanging between us. Winter deepened, and Chicago became a frozen maze of ice and wind. Julian and I were trying, but trust is a fragile thing. easily cracked. He was more present, leaving notes on my pillow, planning quiet nights in. But Marcus's shadow lingered, a ghost we couldn't fully exorcise. Every time Julian's phone lit up, my heart braced for impact. One evening, I came home to find Julian pacing, his face pale. Marcus showed up at the restaurant. He said, his voice tight. He worked as a chef at a trendy spot in the West Loop, and Marcus had walked in, alone, asking for him. He said he made a mistake, that he wants me back. My stomach dropped. I sat on the couch, gripping the armrest. What did you say? I asked, dreading the answer. I told him I'm married. Julian said, his eyes meeting mine. I told him I love you. The words should have felt like a victory, but they didn't. They felt like a confession, like he'd had to convince himself. I nodded, swallowing the lump in my throat. Good, I said, but my voice was hollow. That night, Julian held me tighter than ever, his breath warm against my neck. I'm done with him, he whispered. I swear. I wanted to believe him, but love is a battlefield, and I was tired of fighting. I started pulling back, spending more time at the studio, sketching late into the night. My designs became darker, full of jagged lines and stormy colors, a reflection of the chaos inside me. Lena noticed. Over brunch at a Ukrainian village diner, she pushed her plate aside and fixed me with a stare. You're fading, Ezra, she said. You're giving him everything, and he's giving you scraps. I wanted to argue, but she was right. I was losing myself, trying to hold on to someone who might never be fully mine. Then came the night that broke us open. It was a Friday, the city buzzing with holiday lights. Julian had the night off, and we planned a date, our first in weeks. We were walking through Millennium Park, the beam reflecting the city's glow, when Julian stopped short. Marcus was there, leaning against a railing, watching us. Julian, he called, his voice smooth, confident. I felt Julian tense beside me. Keep walking, I said, my voice low. But Julian didn't move. Marcus approached, his eyes flicking to me, then back to Julian. Can we talk? He asked. Julian hesitated, and in that moment, I felt invisible. Go, I said, my voice cold. Talk to him. But I'm not waiting. I turned and walked away, my heart pounding, the city blurring through tears. I didn't go home. I wandered, ending up at a bar in Andersonville, nursing a whiskey. My phone buzzed with Julian's texts. I'm sorry. Please come home. I ignored them. Hours later, he found me, his coat dusted with snow. I told him it's over. He said, his voice raw. I told him I choose you. I looked at him, searching his face for the truth. Why should I believe you? I asked. He knelt in front of me, ignoring the stares of strangers. Because I'm here, he said. Because I'm begging. His vulnerability disarmed me, and I let him take me home. That night, we didn't sleep. We talked, cried, fought, and made love, stripping away the lies until only truth remained. Julian admitted he'd been scared of letting go, scared of loving me fully. I admitted I was scared too, scared of being hurt again. By morning, we were raw but hopeful. Julian promised to keep fighting, and I promised to stay. We were bruised, but we were still standing. Spring came to Chicago, thawing the city and our hearts. Julian was different, lighter, like a weight had lifted. He quit checking Marcus's social media, and his smiles felt genuine. We started building new memories, picnics by Lake Michigan, late-night jazz clubs in Bronzeville, stolen kisses in the rain. But love, even when it's real, isn't a straight line. One afternoon, I found an envelope in Julian's jacket, addressed to him in Marcus's handwriting. My heart sank. I didn't open it, I couldn't, but its presence felt like a betrayal. When Julian came home, I held it up, my hand shaking. What is this? I asked. He froze, his face pale. It's nothing, he said. He sent it weeks ago. I didn't open it. I wanted to believe him, but the doubt was back, sharper than ever. Then open it now, I said, my voice steady despite the storm inside. Julian hesitated, then tore it open. Inside was a letter. Marcus's words spilling across the page, apologies, regrets, a plea for another chance. Julian read it in silence, then handed it to me. Burn it, he said. I stared at him, searching for a lie, but his eyes were clear. We lit a match and watched the letter curl into ash, the smoke curling out the window into the Chicago sky. That moment felt like a turning point. But life doesn't let you rest. Julian's restaurant was struggling, and the stress wore him down. He'd come home exhausted, his hands calloused from long hours. I tried to support him, cooking dinners when he was too tired, listening when he needed to vent. But the letter had left a crack in our trust, and I couldn't shake the fear that Marcus was still there, waiting. One night, Julian came home with news. The restaurant was closing. He sat on the couch, head in his hands, and I saw the boy from San Juan, scared and vulnerable. I failed, he said. I knelt beside him, taking his hands. You didn't fail, I said. You're still here. We're still here. He looked at me, tears in his eyes, and pulled me into his arms. I don't know what I'd do without you, he whispered. We started dreaming again, talking about opening our own Placia small cafe where Julian could cook and I could display my art. It was a fragile dream, but it gave us purpose. We spent nights sketching plans, laughing over bad coffee, rebuilding what we'd almost lost. But Marcus wasn't done with us. One evening, as we walked home from a movie, Marcus appeared, his face drawn. I'm leaving Chicago, he said, his eyes on Julian. I just needed to see you one last time. Julian stiffened, but his voice was calm. I'm happy, Marcus, he said. I hope you find that too. Marcus nodded, his eyes lingering, then walked away. I watched him go, waiting for Julian to falter. But he didn't. He took my hand, and we kept walking. That night, Julian proposed again, not with a ring, but with words. I want to marry you again, he said, his voice steady. For real this time. No ghosts. No revenge. Just us. I said yes, tears streaming down my face. And we held each other as the city hummed outside. Summer arrived, painting Chicago in vibrant greens and golds. Julian and I were different now, stronger. Not because we'd won every battle, but because we'd fought them together. Our cafe dream took shape. A small space in Uptown with exposed brick and big windows. We called it Solace, a name that felt like a promise. Opening day was chaos, burnt pastries, a broken coffee machine, customers spilling in faster than we could handle. But Julian was in his element, his laughter filling the kitchen as he plated empanadas. I hung my artwork on the walls, each piece a story of user pain, our love, our resilience. Lena was there, pouring drinks and teasing us, her presence a reminder of the family we'd built. That night, after the last customer left, Julian and I stood in the empty cafe, the city quiet outside. He pulled me close, his hands warm against my back. We did this, he said, his voice thick with emotion. You and me. I kissed him, tasting salt and promise, and knew we'd made it through the storm. Marcus was gone, not just from Chicago, but from our lives. Julian had let him go, and I'd let go of my fear. Our love wasn't perfect, it was scarred. Messy, real, but it was ours. We renewed our vows in a quiet ceremony by the lake. Just us and a few friends. Lena officiated, her voice cracking as she pronounced us husbands. Again, Julian's vows were simple. Ezra, you're my home. I'll spend my life proving it. Years later, Solace became a haven for others like us, queer kids, dreamers, people searching for a place to belong. Julian cooked, I designed, and together we built something bigger than ourselves. The pain of our past didn't vanish, but it shaped us, reminding us of the strength it took to choose love over revenge. Every night, as we locked up the cafe, Julian would take my hand, his touch steady, grounding. He'd cling to me, not out of desperation anymore, but out of certainty. And I'd hold him back, knowing we'd fought for this, knowing we'd won.